In the studio, it is the one and only U.S. Senator Roger Wicker. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Well, good morning, Paul. And I'll tell you, getting a mortgage, I'm sure will be real easy with your customer there, but interest rates sure are going up because of the decisions of this Biden administration. So I wish them well.
That's in the news. The last, 24, 48 hours, hiked again?
Right, and the Dow dropped another 500 points on that news. Just keeps going.
Welcome to Jimmy Carter land, man. We've gone through this once. We don't want to do it again.
Right, absolutely. But, you know, the thing about it is a self-inflicted wound that everybody was warned about. There's no question.
Yeah.
When the very first month in office, President Biden wanted to spend $1.9 trillion extra when we were already getting over the COVID recession. Democrats and Republicans, people from the Obama administration, said this is going to cause inflation and interest rates are going to go up. So here we are.
You've been in the Senate for how long now?
I was appointed on New Year's Eve, 2007, by Haley Barbour.
Have you ever seen any... and you read a lot. Have you ever seen anybody with a streak of failures like this guy?
Absolutely.
There is nobody.
I haven't. I mean, you know, maybe
there's none.
Warren Harding, but that would be in the history book. The very first day, President Biden canceled the Keystone XL pipeline. It sent a signal to the rest of the world that the United States was not interested in being energy independent anymore. And then the $1.9 trillion spending bill and that clear signal that caused those caravan after caravan of illegal immigrants coming from South and Central America up through Mexico. Every one of those disasters was telegraphed early, and it's a decision that this administration made. So, the American people are going to have a chance in 5 days to tell what they think about that.
It's just like a doctor when a patient is already weak. You know how far to go. And if you're the new doctor coming in, you don't try any risky surgery because of the weakness of the doctor. And I say this just as an analogy that he made all of these unbelievably stupid decisions when we were weak from the pandemic already.
Well, that's true, but in terms of the economy, we still had the great regulation lifters in place, where it lifted the burden on job creators and farmers, and we had a tax policy that was encouraging job creation, and basically all Joe Biden had to do was take advantage of what was already in place and sort of guide the ship and be that centrist that he talked about being when he was running for the nomination back in the spring of 2020.
You're closer than most people being in the United States Senate. You hear the buzz. I asked you this several years ago, or 2 years ago, from Roger Wicker, fellow Mississippian. What do you think his, I got to choose my words here, just his mental capability is right now? Because it's less than the last time I asked you this question. Are you seriously? You hear things that we don't hear. Should we be worried about it?
You think you have to choose your words?
Yes.
Let me say it's something to be concerned about, and you hear about it not only on the cable shows and 24-hour radio, but you hear about it in the major publications too. I noticed there was something in the Washington Post just day before yesterday that said really Biden and Harris should just go ahead and announce that they will not run for re-election. Joe Biden is like a lot of people. He has good days and bad days. He's never had a problem with telling a little whopper every hour or so. I mean, it just falls off.
I understand that, and that's folksy. But do you understand that in the last, this week, I think twice he has mentioned that his son Bo died in Iraq.
Right. Yes. It's painful. And, neither you nor I voted for him or would ever think about it, but that we only have one commander-in-chief of the military, and that's Joe Biden. So I can only hope he's got people around him that are mindful that the first thing he says is perhaps not the thing that he needs to say. I worry about it, and I'm not a clinician. But
as an American, with the sabers rattling as far as nuclear war between Russia and Ukraine, and who knows how far that's going to expand. As a matter of fact, speaking of which, here's a story that is very concerning to all of us.
Inside of Ukraine, who are doing weapons inspections now. I'm wondering what the rules of engagement for those personnel are if they're fired on by the Russians or if they're targeted by the Russians.
We do have small teams that are comprised of embassy personnel that are conducting some inspections of security assistance delivery at a variety of locations. And again, this is part of a broader effort of the U.S. government to track U.S.-provided capabilities and to prevent the illicit spread throughout Eastern Europe. My understanding is they would be well far away from any type of frontline actions. We are relying on the Ukrainians to do that. We're relying on other partners to do that. Essentially, that would not be the case for U.S. personnel. The point being, they're not going to be operating on the front lines.
So up until this point, there haven't been any U.S. troops inside of Ukraine, and now we do have U.S. troops inside of Ukraine.
Now, we've had U.S. forces serving at the embassy as part of the Defense Attaché office, which is where these guys are assigned.
Senator, that is U.S. Air Force Brigadier General Pat Ryder. And the audio is from a press conference of General Ryder, who is high enough in the rankings to answer any questions, and we have troops on the ground in Ukraine now.
Well, first of all, let me get back to a point you made about the nuclear weapons before you asked this question. This is the very time that our commander-in-chief does not need to be saying words like nuclear Armageddon and things like that. It's just absolutely inappropriate. We do have troops in every country at embassies, and there are rules of engagement for them, and yes, they have weapons. This is a story that came to light, again, I think day before yesterday. If we're going to provide weapons and ammunition, Stingers, javelins, and things like that to our allies in Ukraine, it doesn't shock my conscience that we would have people there making sure that nobody makes off with them. And,
are we talking about civilians, or are we talking about those in combat? In other words, if they're, from what I'm hearing from you, and I think you're on some of those committees, of course, so I'm not sure what you can say and what you can't say, but from what I'm hearing from you is we provided those weapons, and now we're venturing out from the embassy itself. I'm not sure how close to the front lines, but we have American soldiers who are now going to see how these weapons are being used.
Okay, well, we're going to provide oversight on this. This is a statement that was made day before yesterday.
And if they're fired upon, can they return fire?
Any hearings on that? No. If they are there in a combat role, we need to know it. I think
if they're fired
to make
upon,
sure
can they return fire?
Nobody. All right. Makes off with the weapons that we provided. I still have to be encouraged by the fact that the Ukrainians are taking what our allies are giving them and taking it to the Russians.
We got more coming up next.
Okay.
Here's just a little bit more of that.
Conduct security cooperation.
But this will be different because they'd be working outside of the U.S. Embassy. I'm just wondering if people should read this as an escalation and U.S. involvement in the war.
No.
Are there U.S. troops, like U.S. Marine security forces, protecting the embassy personnel who is doing the inspections?
We have U.S. Marines at the embassy. Our folks are not going to be on the front lines.
All right. That's what he says, and as far as you know, that's correct.
I think so. I'll take. But I will tell you this: it does occur to me that I need to talk to Jake Sullivan directly today and get it straight from the White House. So,
well, also to the point of if they are fired upon, can they return fire? And I'm not. And there was some gray area there. We're not sure if they're personnel who are on contract or they're being guarded by uniformed soldiers or not. So,
well, if they're fired, if an American is fired upon, he ought to be able to return fire. But we are. We're 2 days into this story, or a day and a half into the story, and there will be some oversight.
The affirmative action, and we played something on the affirmative action coming into this, and that's something the Supreme Court is dealing with. Any comment on that?
Well, it seems to me that there ought to be some way to make education available to a broad cross-section of Americans without taking race into consideration. And I think that's what the applicants to these two universities are talking about. So I really think Clarence Thomas is in the right direction there, and there are several options that they might choose of various degrees, but I am sympathetic to the idea of judging people by the content of their character rather than by their race, and that goes all the way back half a century to Martin Luther King on the steps of the Lincoln.
Absolutely. Senator Roger Wicker, you've got some good bean counters out there. What does it look like in the Senate?
Well, I was just looking at for your viewers. I'm sitting in the Paul Gallo chair, and I'm able to watch Fox Business live right now, and it looks like a 1-point race in Georgia with Warnock at 54 and Herschel Walker at 44 and Herschel Walker at 43. It's a lot of undecided. I really feel good about it, and let me just say, the American people get to choose, and they've got 5 days to do it. If they would like a change from this super inflation, from gas prices being twice what they were earlier, to a border where caravan after caravan comes and the only people checking them are the drug cartels. If they like a change from that and a little balance and not have everything in the whole federal government controlled by the Democrats, they've got that choice on Tuesday. And I know in meeting with Mississippians, they very desperately want some balance, and they want Republicans to take over the House and Senate. And I think it's looking pretty good. I notice even the liberal website 538 has finally got it 53% chance of Republicans taking the Senate.
53%?
They're giving us 53% now, and it took them until just a day or two to do that. But I think the trend is in our favor, but people are going to have to get out and vote, and they need to get out and vote here in Mississippi.
I see some things where some of the early voting has been, really heavy, and there are some indications that early voting is not as well. It's going to be heavier Democrat, but it seems like we got more Republicans, at least that's what some of the early surveys say, who are also getting out there to do early voting, which is good. But I got to tell you, the complexity of the House and Senate is going to change in the next Congress, one way or the other. We got some new Republicans that are possibly going to be in there that are new generation. We got some people who are in there from the left, if they're in there, like Fetterman.
What do you think the biggest cause of inflation is, and should the Biden administration be doing more?
No, I just do. I think that simply is also, let's talk about the trillions in massive tax cuts to the corporate tax structure as well. True, trillions of dollars that have added to the deficit, and now they still want to support those as well. True. I think in terms of being very serious about
it's painful listening to this guy.
Well, it is, Paul, but that is absolute nonsense. It is backward. 3 years after the Trump tax cut bill, which is the best bill I ever voted for, 3 years after that, inflation was low. unemployment was 3.5%, and the deficit had gone down because of the economic activity that we caused by lifting the tax burden and the regulatory burden on job creators. So he is absolutely backwards on that, and this is a guy that could win or lose on Tuesday.
Yep.
And what he wants to do is raise taxes on job creators and thinks that will help us with inflation. We couldn't have a clearer choice in Pennsylvania.
You know, and you also look at things like Florida and the vote there for Charlie Crist, and I can't even believe that these people have the audacity to mention some of the things that they're talking about. To me, it's crazy.
So thank you for coming. You mentioned the pandemic. Hopefully, it's behind us. But as Florida's governor, would you be open to mandating or regulating masks?
I would be open to doing what scientists advise.
But he goes on in there basically saying that he would like to reimpose this, and same thing in the New York governor. How in the world do they even think, with all the information coming in, that this is a good campaign statement?
Well, let me just tell you, I know Lee Zeldin, the U.S. House member in Long Island who's running for governor. That he would be such a terrific asset for the United States of America. He is absolutely terrific, pro-life, pro-growth. And
Lee's an attorney too, is he? He is an attorney, isn't he?
I don't know, but he's a veteran. He's a combat veteran. He's a great dad, and if we could get him elected governor of New York, you'd see some changes there, and of course we're going to win that governor's race in Florida, going away, and if New York could follow, perhaps the brain drain from New York down to Florida would stop. So we've got great chances, and the momentum just needs to continue for the next 5 days.
If the gavel goes over to the Republicans, is Mitch McConnell going to be holding it?
I think so.
Will you ask for the same committees if that should happen? I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but
let me just say, if that happens, I will be the chairman of the Armed Services Committee. And I'll be on the same committees I'm on now. But we haven't had a Mississippi chairman of armed services since John C. Stennis, and I look forward to working with the leadership in every National Guard armory in the state of Mississippi, all of our defense manufacturers, and our military installations, in making sure we get back to the strength we had during the Reagan administration.
Good way to end the program. Finally, did you serve with Dick Hall?
Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, he had been in the House of Representatives, but we were freshman senators together, and he was great to work with. Before that, he was a job creator himself, and a good friend, and we went through some battles shoulder to shoulder together, and I liked him a whole lot.
One thing you could say, but he was passionate, very, very passionate.
Absolutely.
Very
let me
committed
just also
to his people.
Let me mention Noel Akins, former state representative, was my coach when I was a Pontotoc High School Warrior, and we will lay him to rest in Oxford and Antippa County tomorrow. And I wanted to do a shout out, not only to Dick Hall, but my late coach, Noel Akins.
Big economic development yesterday to your neck of the woods over in East Mississippi?
Well, outstanding. Of course, they're all my neck of the woods.
Yes, I understand
and I love
that,
all 82 of my counties. But yes, and this is something that Trent Lott and Jamie Whitten worked on, the Tennessee Tom Bigby waterway there. And we would not be adding those 1,000 jobs making over $90,000 a year if we didn't have an alternative there to ship goods up and down. So I'm really tickled with the leadership our state has made on that.
When do you got a few seconds left? When do you go back to Washington?
We go back to Washington the Tuesday after the election. So
you got
the third Tuesday in November, we'll be back up
Hey,
there.
look, thank you for coming in. It's real comfortable being in the big chair.
You know, I like this seat. I don't want the job,
seat.
but I think you've got a nice perspective there, Paul. I hope you,
Thank you, man.
get out and about soon.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it very much. U.S.